This episode is going to be more or less Bahamian life versus American and Western culture. What are some of the similarities between Bahamian culture and U.S. culture?
To all parents, especially African American, because I think it's really big that you're hoping your kid's the next Michael Jordan or LeBron James or Kanye.
Don't bring up Kanye to make fun of him. I heard the sarcasm in your voice.
It would have been mine if it hadn't been for those meddling kids.
All right, welcome to the Full Gambit podcast. It has been a long time. It has been a very, very long time, but I am back, and look who I found.
Seek and ye shall find. Ask and it shall.
All the way from Houston, coming up the road, coming through Cowpen to get to Airport Industrial Park. I have never heard that in my...
From the east?
That's so wild. Just drive the highway straight down.
I live already kind of by the canal, so why not just take a straight Saunders Highway and come that way?
I know where you live. Just turn up on the highway.
You telling all these people where
I'm telling them. I said, I know where you live. When you're in town.
I don't even show them my house anymore.
I know where you live, where you stay at before you change. Anyway, I ain't even gonna put you on there like that.
Where eyes be.
Wherever you be, you take the wrong road, okay?
First of all, it's in the phone book, like everything. So do they have phone books anymore?
They do.
BTC?
It's like a prop. So this one is going to be the Bahamian episode because a lot of people have been hitting me up like, hold on. Are you in the United States? Are you Bahamian? I am full-blooded Bahamian. Only one passport. I've not been blessed with double passports like other people.
3 passports.
You have a Canadian passport too?
No.
Oh.
Jamaican, Bahamian, American.
Ah, you're a yachty nuts.
What do you say?
That wasn't even convincing.
I don't know.
Mine was a lot better.
Acting saltfish. I don't know.
But what a lot of people have been asking me is, Jay, is there? Because they're like, okay, I know you don't want to have a Bahamian podcast, and I know you have worldly views, but can you give us a little bit more clarity on your Bahamian-esque background while giving your viewpoint?
They want your Bahamian background?
Yeah. Or how we look at things. So this episode is going to be more or less Bahamian life versus American and Western culture.
Yay.
So this one is pretty perfect for you. So first question that I got is, what is the Bahamian viewpoint on Black America? I can only speak for myself. I really don't trust Black Americans. I always look at them as a little scammy and scam artists, like very not serious, very lazy, always complaining, like everything is because of slavery. I mean, yes, it has its...
First of all...
It has its merits sometimes, but I think sometimes in certain arguments is an overreach because you yourself wasn't a slave, so you're a bit far removed.
Depending on you're talking economic, political, socio-economic. There's a lot of different things that we are still one step away.
Also, I do not like the connotation that is the label African American because I believe personally, that's my objective viewpoint, that unless you are an African migrant, you should not be labeled African American. I think the descendants of slaves that live in America that are American should just be called American. Because you don't call white Americans German American. You just call them American.
Some call them Italian American. Like when you watch Tony Montana, he's Italian American.
No, Tony Montana was Cuban.
Oh, his real life character.
You're talking about Soprano.
No, as his real life character, Al Pacino is Italian American.
Yeah, whatever.
Most white immigrant, first, second generation, take pride in being Italian American, Jewish American. You hear that a lot. You have museums, the Jewish American, they like that. So why is it that we cannot determine that we want to, why can't we have our say? Mexican American, Puerto Ricans are Puerto Rican majority American.
I think after you become an American, you should just say you're American. I think the label, the hyphen kind of divides the pot. I think you could be prideful in your ancestry. I think you could be prideful in your heritage and in your culture, and that should be rich. Mm-hmm. But y'all ain't African American, sorry. Y'all just black niggas.
First of all, you don't have to be black to be a nigga.
Hold on.
There's plenty of white niggas out there.
Hold on. One thing, and this is another thing like a lot of people
Bahamians love to use that word as opposed to ER.
Right. And that's another thing. A lot of people like, how come you can say that with such impunity? One, because I'm black. Let's look at me. I'm a Bahamian. Mm-hmm. And down here in the Bahamas, south of Florida, north of Cuba, everybody's a nigga. My mama's a nigga.
85% of the population in the Bahamas categorizes themselves as of African descent.
No. I talk about that. I talk about the stuff, oofty. I talk about on the street. Like Rodney Monka says, there's a white nigga, there's a black nigga, a woman can be a nigga, a sissy nigga. You got all type of niggas. You have all type, and it's not offensive. It's like, it's almost like boy. And you know what the weird thing I found? You can't say boy in America because they confuse it with bay. Yeah. And they think it's a suspect thing.
Mm-hmm. B-A-E as opposed to B-U-E-Y. How do we spell that?
I spell it with B-E-Y.
Okay. I'll take it. Like Beyonce Bey? B?
Bay.
But you gotta put a U or something in there.
It's Bay. Bay.
No, but okay, Jay.
Cancel your passport,
no, but Jay, I think, okay, I'm first generation American technically because my parents are green card holders, and then I would be the first one born on the soil.
Right.
So I would take pride in calling myself Caribbean American. Part of a Caribbean American Chamber of Commerce. I associate with different people who are first generation American of Caribbean descent. So there's pride in the fact that when I hang out with my Trinis, my Bajans, my Jamaicans, my Haitians that are all first generation, we have that in common.
Right.
So calling me Caribbean American is cool. I'm fine with it. And everybody takes pride in that.
I'm calling you no Caribbean American, though.
Why not? I would say everyone who fits in that category coming from the diaspora of the Caribbean, meaning the slave ships stopped in the Caribbean first. We suffered through colonialism and neo-colonialism. And now here we are, where the money resides, right? So I think from that perspective, I'm cool being Caribbean American. I'm cool with being identified as first generation American, which puts me with the Italians, the Jews, the all of those other cultures where their parents are green card holders who had to go through the discrimination and the struggle of whatever it took for them to be green card holders to have American born children. So I think that that's not a bad thing to be called African American up against the lens of the other cultures that are happy to want you to know where their ancestors came from, or maybe where their parents came from. Sometimes it's not multiple generations.
So you don't look at the label of African American as a slight or just another way for them to be like, okay, hey nigga, what's up? You don't think that's a new ER?
No, because I live in Texas, which is a red state.
Okay.
And even from a federal level, when you go to check a box on the census or you're applying for your marketplace Obamacare insurance, they want to know, are you Chicano American? Are you Mexican American? Are you Guatemalan American? Like they want to know specifically what is your generation right above you coming from.
Okay.
And it's interesting because they want them all to be white. So what happens is there's a box for like white. And if you're like Mexican, they want you to check the box that you're white and Mexican. And I'm like, you're not white, you're Mexican. So they're trying to make everyone be one thing or the other, white or black. But then they're allowing all these subgroups to qualify themselves as white too, and co-signing that foolishness. So now you got all these Mexicans and Puerto Ricans and Dominicans talk about, oh, I white. That's what the box say. Like, no, you're not.
Because apparently, technically, they're gearing up for a quote unquote race war.
Yes.
And I saw that on a podcast. I can't remember the exact podcast. They asked this lady, this girl, and I'm going to assume her gender in 2023. She looked like a woman.
She, her.
She looked like a woman, so I assume that she's a woman. And they asked her, which race do you think African Americans could ally with or would ally with African Americans in the upcoming race war?
People of color.
And they said nobody,
Real.
because the people in the Caribbean and Africans, the real Africans on the motherland, on the continent, don't fuck with African Americans because we find y'all weird.
Well,
That's y'all. That's you. I like you.
Well, I think it's
I like
interesting.
a lot of my other African American friends, but for the
They
most
are
part,
separatists.
it's weird. You guys are weird.
No, but I also think there's a line, right? There's a fine line because, like, when I was in college, all of the first generation people were in one group, and there were people who were African American who were in kind of another group. And everything culturally was so similar with first generation African, first generation Caribbean. They were kind of over here. Even like my Dominican and Puerto Ricans and all of them, they were kind of working with us. Like, we all eat rice, some version of rice and beans, peas and rice.
It tastes good. It's good.
But the Black Americans don't eat that. So even from a cultural work ethic, like you say, there are some stereotypes that are true or false.
Stereotypes that are basically true.
I mean, I know some people from like other places that are a little lazy as well. I think that's a household thing. I think that's a mommy and daddy thing. I don't think it's a race thing.
Okay.
But I also think when you talk about putting these people in geopolitical circles, like by the time I take an African descent, meaning first generation came from an African country.
Right.
So they're speaking another language.
Okay.
So now they're entering the job force speaking multiple languages. So now they're going to get hired at a different level than someone who speaks one language.
But they're actually an African American.
Right. Well, that's what they don't necessarily associate. Most first generation African hang with first generation Caribbeans. They don't really fool with that, right?
Which is why I'm saying that the diaspora, the
African diaspora,
for some reason, there is a huge disconnect between us and people, African Americans.
Yes, but look at, so from a geopolitical, I'll break it down simple. If you are a first generation person coming from another country, let's compare African Caribbean versus African American. Your parents probably came in because they went to college. That's usually the traditional way you come. So now you're coming from parents who were college educated.
Okay.
You're speaking multiple languages depending on the country you come from.
Okay.
Spanish, French, or other. So now you've got this bootstrap kind of pull yourselves up by the bootstraps kind of mentality. You've come from a W.B. Du Bois kind of talented 10th mentality where your parents are educated. So you've grown up understanding what hard work can get you. Maybe they own multiple businesses. Maybe they had enough money to bring their whole family from Africa based on what the parents did. Now compare that to someone who comes from a sharecropping family who took college loans to go to an HBCU, was the first person to go to their college. Mom was probably a housekeeper or worked in the lunchroom or something like that. They're coming from a completely different experience. They didn't have a family of generations that were college educated. They're not driving Benzes to school. Like, their struggle is totally different. So how do you expect them, who's on their financial aid, working at Sam's Club and KFC, to be besties with the African and Caribbean folks whose families paying $30,000 a year cash because they couldn't get financial aid to go to that college? They riding in the Benz with you? No.
So you're trying to say we different?
Of course, because our geopolitical background, our economic struggle, our everything about the demographic with which we come from
Who's better?
is different. I wouldn't say it's better or worse. I would say it's just different.
So you trying to tell me, in this day and age, where everything is a competition, everybody feels that one is better or one has more opportunities or...
I feel if you speak Spanish in the United States, you're better off.
If you can speak Spanish and English.
Yes, because all of those bilingual jobs are yours immediately, as opposed to an African American who may only speak one language.
Barely.
It is what it is.
What up, my boy? Listen.
Bruh.
Okay, here's the thing.
And that's where Bahamians then are disadvantaged too, because we come from the English-speaking Caribbean. We don't have multiple languages. That's where the Haitians and the Cubans and the Dominicans kind of beat us out because they have another language under their belt. So when they do rise up economically, they soar.
So what advice would you give to young African Americans trying to change their situation like right now? Like say they're 15, they realize that the deck is kind of against them and they want to diversify. Where do you push them? What areas do you push them?
My first advice is everybody's not going to the NFL or the NBA. I feel the more parents, you can still do Little League and let your child train and do AAU and all of that.
For discipline purposes.
Yes, and because it makes you a better person, but you have to also provide them with a foundation. One of my really good friends, he's an engineer in Mississippi.
Shout out to
him. Yep. And he has a lot of his friends who went to college are now in the NFL.
Okay.
He thought he was going to the NFL, but he focused on math and science. He ended up going to an HBCU and he's now an engineer making high six figures.
Nice.
He learned very early from his parents that, yeah, we want you to go to the NFL, but just in case. And what happened? He ended up getting hurt. Got hurt. And next thing you know, he's in the job force and he's not NFL bound. So I think my first bit of advice for parents is, yes, athletics is for discipline, but let your child have some stuff to fall back on. I have a lot of parents that I know, my friends now that have their kids are like 17, 16. They are like ready to sign the NFL contract. They are ready to sign the NBA contract for their kids. And I kind of wonder, have you gotten prepared if they don't get drafted? If they do get hurt?
Which is a high probability.
Like, look at Ryan Shazier, who did get drafted to the Steelers, then got that hit, and now will never play again. Like, how prepared is he for the future? He was one of the lucky ones that did get drafted. He was one of the best in his position, but he still no longer has a career. What do you do then? So I would say to all parents, especially African-American, because I think it's really big that you're hoping your kid's the next Michael Jordan or LeBron James.
Yeah, they're hoping that
Kanye.
They win the genetic lottery. Don't bring up Kanye to make fun of him. I heard the sarcasm in your voice. Like,
no,
you need to ease up, bro.
I don't think that's true.
Don't cause me to push you across there.
Oh, no. But generally, people think that their kid's going to be a musician too, a rapper. How many kids, like, you've seen all these suicides from people who are out there trying to be rappers or getting killed or whatever. So I think from that perspective, that would be my first advice, which is what you asked me, which is your kid is not necessarily going to be in the NBA, the NFL, or become a rapper. Prepare.
Yeah. Okay. So back to the Bahamian aspect of it. What are some of the similarities between Bahamian culture and U.S. culture? I think we are a little United States, right? And it's not just because of the dollar for dollar or the proximity to Florida. I think we're very...
The influence.
It's Western.
Yeah.
Yes, you still can see some of our colonial influence, but we are very Americanized.
Because of the proximity and with tourism, if we have to cater to that demographic over time, we're going to play the music
and everything.
Yeah, man. That bothers me when I get into
Lady,
taxi.
you want to get your hair braided?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Oh, God.
That's a lot.
It really, we're going to get up to the tourist traps in a minute, but the similarities.
I think there are some really great similarities. I think with regard to the fact that when you think of how the Bahamas specifically, we were the summer homes, right? We didn't have vast plantations. So a lot of those slaves that were in the Carolinas, and a lot of those. Yeah, that's true.
We had some big plantations that made a lot of money. Don't you dare try and downplay our slavery story.
No, but a lot of our people were more the house slave versus the field slave, depending on the island. Depending on the island. Depending on the island, historically.
Slavery was brutal here too.
Not that it wasn't brutal. I'm saying that when you think of the fact of the similarity, a lot of the slave owners of the Carolinas and Georgia and Florida also had properties here. Mm-hmm. So they're raising and creating the same culture, the same grits,
so we shared the same, we share similar cultures based on the plantations on the East Coast.
That's specifically where I was going.
Okay.
The foods are similar.
Yeah.
The way we raise our families and talk to each other is very similar. The accent of the Gullah Geechee is very similar to the Bahamian accent.
Really?
Yeah, like if you listen to it, you're like, where are you from? And they're like, what, a little island off the coast of the Carolinas? What, So I think you see a lot of that, like grits. Come on, Bahamians will die if you don't have grits in the morning with your breakfast in some cases, especially in my house. My grandfather is like, if grits ain't on the plate, I'm not fooling with y'all.
I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I do eat grits, but I do know it's slave food.
Yes, but that's similar culture. That's where it came from.
What else?
Language. The accents are similar.
Yeah.
I think
we have similar attitudes.
Yeah, similar attitudes. I think the fact that we were not oppressed in the same way with regard to history. So the fact that we got to see Sir Lyndon Pendling be the prime minister, I think that shaped the way we thought of ourselves, different than only children now got to see a Barack Obama.
So we realized the dream, which was written in the Bahamas. A lot of people don't know that the I Have a Dream speech was written in Bimini.
Correct.
And Martin Luther King had a significant role in our path to majority rule.
Correct. And then when you even think of, I don't know if you've ever watched the show Good Times, right? Where Florida Evans, who's played by Bahamian Esther Rolle. And when you walk into her living room, she has a Black Jesus, and Martin Luther King or something on the wall. So what Martin Luther King symbolized to a lot of people, they're only seeing that in the 60s as, I can be a Black person that is cool with the president. Wow. I think, imagine going 400 years, even with us, and when even you look like Bahamian versus Jamaican versus Cuban. Let's compare that.
Okay.
What a Cuban child grew up seeing Fidel Castro is totally different than the role of a Bahamian who saw Pendling or a Jamaican who saw a Siaga or a Manley. The assertiveness, the sense of independence,
and the audacity. We had a lot of audacity. We realized the dream a lot earlier in the heyday of oppression because it was still going on.
And look at that versus a Haiti, because of the fact that they were first. They suffered a lot over the last 200 years because of it.
And you know what? That's a sad thing. I think we, as a collective, and I'm talking about Blacks in the West, have done a disservice to Haiti because we know what the French and the Americans did to them, and we still allow it to this day. And we pretend like, we don't know.
But how could we not allow it? What are we going to step in and do?
We can agitate. Haiti is ripe for opportunity. Right. It's not as huge as the continent of Africa, which has several countries. It's off the coast. It's easy. It's accessible. Joint venture capital. Come on, man. We can do something with Haiti.
But I think when you think of...
We could do something with Haiti and bring it back to its prominence a lot quicker and let that be our first example of Black excellence, innovation in modern. Remember when Trump first came to power and the whole thing was go where you came from, or I'm going or I'm going to voluntarily leave America because Trump is so bad and so racist and all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. Haiti would be perfect for you. Haiti and the Bahamas, the Caribbean would be perfect for you.
So let's look a little bit at history. So when Haiti was doing its thing, remember a lot of the lighter skinned Haitians left. Originally, Dominican Republic and Haiti were not two different places. It just so happened kind of like New Providence, right? Where over the hill were the darker Haitians and over here were the lighter Haitians. And one day they just became Dominican Republic, right? Or when you look at islands like Long Island, where many of those families that we consider white, when you chase their lineage back, they're actually light-skinned Haitians that moved to Long Island.
Well, you better stop cursing on this podcast. You don't cost me a cancel off YouTube for the people reporting.
Ancestry.com. Look it up.
Call them Long Island people.
They are Haitians.
Haitians?
That's what they were. There's a hole in Long Island where allegedly they used to throw dark-skinned Haitians because of the situation. Allegedly.
You gotta stop it.
Allegedly. I don't know. I mean,
stop.
My grandpa 88, that's what he told me. I know, but I wasn't there.
Stop.
But if you look at the lineage, I have friends that are like, again, first generation, second generation African American who are descendants and their parents are those light-skinned Haitians who were doctors and lawyers who moved to the US because they had opportunity. And it's a totally different thing. So if all of those people who left, similar to Cuba, a lot of people who left and made it big, right? If they decided to invest and uplift their culture, but is it in their best economic interest? They might not feel so. Do you think people from Long Island, arguably, if they happen to have been light-skinned Haitians who defected, do you think they're interested in going back to take their money back to Haiti, make it better? No.
See, people think when you try to, there's a lot of, I believe that what we consider to be poor countries are not poor countries. They're rich in so many different resources. They're overexploited. And
intellectual capital has left.
So I personally feel that it is ripe. That's the capitalist in me. I think it's ripe for opportunity. And if anybody should benefit from it, it should be us.
Okay.
Right?
Look at Nigeria. When a lot of people think of Nigerian scams, quote unquote, they have a bad rap there, but they're some of the most well-educated Africans, money, school their children, speak multiple languages, right? Like all the opportunity. So the ones that are left behind based on whatever their situation are trying to do what they can do to get that dollar. So, but then the world looks at them differently. But a lot of the intellectual capital, they are famous for remitting money back home. So when you go to Nigeria, still some of the richest people in the world live there because they take it back home.
Yeah. And I think it's the narrative, like America, home of the brave and the land of the free, yada, yada, yada. Like they're the only one with freedom. Like we just have to rewrite the narratives and have a better understanding for what opportunities are right for us.
And do we identify those? How many Bahamians do you know come back? And I think one of the things that my father and I work on is called the Bahamas Diaspora Association, which we formed in the United States in order to not only encourage people to quote unquote come back home, but to bring their resources and intellectuality back home. And so often do you see, like when we talk about the Bahamas think tank, which everyone is like in the little WhatsApp group. And
you mean the Bahamas Illuminati?
Oh my gosh.
That's what that is.
That's the WhatsApp group.
Hey, listen.
First of all, I get so many calls like, PJ, I hear you as an admin of this group, man. You could send me an invitation. And I'll be like,
people trying to get in.
If I get that, like at least like I get that on the daily. But I also think
no room in the end. Sorry.
The original intent was to put people in an environment where everyone is equal. It doesn't matter if you're the former prime minister or you're an MP. They'll tell you, shut your ass and stop talking shit. That's not how it goes.
Oh, a lot of that in there. A lot of intellectual, like debate on policies and what's happening. It's so interesting to see the different perspectives raw and in real time that you don't necessarily get to see. I would love, and I've said this before, I think I asked your dad this one time, I would love just to do a documentary on their perspectives.
That would be an interesting afternoon.
Very.
And it's interesting, like when the draft of different bills come up and they'll post it in there, you'll see there's Sir Franklins and the Dionisio de Aguilars and those Hubert Edwards and those type of people, Marlon Johnson. You'll see them posted at like 5 a.m. and then they'll come back with like I have a problem on page 43. Paragraph 2, and you'll be like, what? Sean McQueenie? Like a lot of them will really dissect it. So and that's the power of technology, because you would never be able to put, some of these people live in the States, in England, different places, and they're able to impact. And then all of a sudden by tomorrow, you see draft 2, where all of the things that were mentioned literally in a WhatsApp group, people have gone back to a bill or some type of parliamentary act that they're trying, and actually revised it based on the opinions. So everyone does have a voice. That's what changes things. Yeah. Like when the great thing with, Sir Cornelius.
So this was born out of the diaspora group.
Yes. And the fact that everybody wanted to have a conversation and they're debating these, and then they start doing these group calls.
On the Zoom.
We used to have these Zooms. Right. And so now sometimes we have lunches at Sappadilla. They'll have lunches from now
I wasn't invited to that. Sorry. Right.
Sometimes, and the thing is, they're impromptu. It'll be like, oh, today at 1:00, everybody. Like, you're not living here. You're not going to be at Sappadilla at 1, right? But then all of a sudden, when you do see the camera pan, you're like, how you get there? They're like, who's blessing the meal? Oh, Bishop Neil is going to bless the meal today. And you're like, oh, look at my bishop. Okay. But from that perspective, I think it's interesting that you see the age group. You see people like a Fred.
It's a wide.
You see people like Fred Perpall, who's CEO of Beck, who's, I would say would be considered my age group, and who's going to be one of I would say he's a leader now on the U.S. side.
There are a few journalists in the group.
Right. You have like a Jason Carey, who's a doctor of cancer research, who talks about, like, he's working on studies about the BRCA gene and how to get rid of breast cancer. Like, those are the type of people that are in the group. So, and that's
the wealth of people that we have in this country, but we don't think about it as a collective.
No. And even during COVID, look at like when Dwayne Sands and all of those were kind of giving their perspective.
And they were sharing resources and ideas.
Yeah, like we had Delta Airlines person who was like, oh, we'll give y'all a plane. Oh, Home Depot's sending over 800 generators. Oh, the seaplane company, Tropic Air with Rob Saravallo. Oh, we're going to just fly over and just literally drop goods in Abaco. Like, all of that was born out of the things that happened with the hurricane and that group and the relationship and the allies. So I think it's a good thing. I don't think that's what is great about our culture, is that we do have people, and because of proximity, a lot of the talented 10th who've left the Bahamas still care what's happening at home.
Yeah.
Fair?
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair.
So let's talk about, and close it up here, talking about poverty and the escape of poverty. Because a lot of people, like, someone told me I was born with a gold spoon in my mouth. And I took
You, Jay?
Yeah, me, Jay. Jay, who had to reinvent itself like 3 times.
So which version of you is the gold spoon version?
I won't know now, because
maybe it's the J. Michael Phoenix version is what they believe has the gold spoon, but they didn't know about the bronze and the copper and the tin and
no spoon. No spoon. Like, I grew up. Someone told me I didn't grow up hard. I grew up hard, like East Street, Golden Gates, hard. My mom was a single mom. My dad left at 6, 4 kids, 6, 4, 3, 6 months.
Little bit.
One time, mom wasn't working, little unfinished apartment in the back of Golden Gates, nothing. at certain parts, my mom wasn't working for like years. We had to deal with some nepotism. Thank God for Teresa Mox Ingram, the late Teresa Mox Ingram. Got my mom in the service. That's how I got the Bahamas Academy. On the grace of Christian folk, like now the president of the conference, Kenny DeVoe. I think he's the conference union. Forgive me, I don't keep up anymore.
Look in the think tank and see what his real title is.
Right? But many terms my mom couldn't pay on time, kept me in school, allowed me to come to school and do what I needed to do, kept me covered. And that's how I survived. So I grew up hard. I grew up by grace by a lot of people. And I decided early that I wasn't going to make a lot of the mistakes that my father made.
Mm-hmm.
Sweethearting, messing up your money early, and just not taking care of your kids. Like, those are the covenants that I will not break with myself. Those are the generational curses I didn't want to repeat. And then I realized, yeah, you kind of grew up broke and poor, and I didn't want that for myself. I love money. And that's like, people be like, oh, that's such a bad thing to say, like it's a curse. Like, no. I like to spend money. I like to make money. I like to feel comfortable. I like to be able to see if I see something and I want it.
It's not your idol.
Right. It's not my idol, but if I want something, I want to feel like I can get it. And if I can't get it right then and there, I could devise and scheme and plan because I want that Burano. I want that Sony Burano. It's $25K, and my wife, when she sees it, she'd be like, you want about a $25,000 camera? But baby, I can make $75 grand. I can make $100,000 off of it. I can rent it out. You understand? So, like, I don't understand why people feel the need to fall in love with mediocrity, to fall in love with poverty, and to curse people that decide that they want to be better.
Poverty is a state of mind before it is an economic condition. If you grow up in a one-room house, at some point you have to be uncomfortable enough in that one-room house with your 10 brothers and sisters to want more than one room. Sometimes you never become uncomfortable. So that's why you stay there, then you get married, you bring your wife back there, and then your children grow up there, and y'all are all comfortable.
You remember...
And you got a Benz parked outside with rims.
Do you remember the engagement that caused my first reset?
Yes, I do. I do recall.
Almost caused me count lamp holes.
Correct.
Right? Wiped out. Mm-hmm. Had nothing left. But did I throw myself off the bridge?
And many do.
Right? Did I crawl up and become a crackhead Jodza?
But you weren't comfortable in the place that they left you. That's why I say poverty is a state of mind. I know a DJ. He used to work at Atlantis. And I used to see him dress up, go out, work these club gigs and everything. But he lived in like a clapboard in Mason's Edition.
Jeez.
And he had this nice like $30,000 Honda.
Yeah, always a
rims,
Honda.
DJ equipment and stuff. And it never occurred to him. I was like, why would you not go get a piece of property and go even use your job letter to go get a low income home and move your mom out the hood?
Yeah.
It didn't occur. He was comfortable grabbing the 40, hanging with the homies, parking his car because everybody know him with the rims in front of the clapboard house. So it's a state of mind. And to this day, he still lives in the clapboard house.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And he's okay. So the question is, what makes you uncomfortable? What makes me uncomfortable is I am always desiring and pushing for the next level. I want to challenge myself. I don't need to compare myself to someone else. I want to be better than I was last year.
Exactly.
I know my numbers so that I can say, oh, I made $1 yesterday. I want to make $1.25 today. Mm-hmm. And when I go to bed at night, I calculate, oh, shoot, I only made $1 today. I got to make $1.25 tomorrow. And as soon as I get up, that's on my mind.
Yeah, that's one of the things that keep, like, exactly. Like, so for me, like I have this software called Studio Ninja, mm-hmm. right? And since I signed up with them in 2019, I've billed like maybe $125,000 worth of services, mm-hmm. right? And I look at that number and I'm like, okay, in 3 months, I need to add 50 to that.
Mm-hmm.
And next year, that needs to be double. And you're in a competition with yourself, not necessarily somebody else, because when you start to look elsewhere and start to compare, you set yourself up for two things. You set yourself up for jealousy and envy, and you set yourself up for, in a way, failure, because you don't know what that person has to do to get what they have.
But comparison and inspiration can be similar.
Not really.
Yeah, I'm inspired by Oprah.
I hate Oprah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm inspired by Oprah and what she
Oprah.
has achieved.
Stealing
And
those
I
people
am,
line,
oh my gosh, allegedly, what are you talking about?
causing that fire.
She didn't cause the fire, man.
Yeah. Her line protected. And she had
Stop.
personal firefighters to protect her.
At any rate, the
There's
thesis.
a second big fire. Oprah had close to her line and caused her to get people line pennies on the dollar. I
Oprah,
say nothing.
don't do it. Don't let Jay lead you astray. So I admire Oprah. I'm inspired by what she has. However, do I compare myself knowing what she went through to her situation? She went through a lot of stuff I'm not interested in going through. Like,
No,
you know what I'm saying?
Oprah has a great story.
And I think I have to continue to be inspired by her.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
Why? Why do you have to continue to be inspired by her?
Because the key, one of the key ethos of Oprah is when you're in a room of 5 people, you're never supposed to be the most successful or the most intelligent person in the room. You always need to make sure that there's someone else in the room that you're striving to raise the bar on. And from that perspective is where I'm at. So I don't want to be in a group of 5 friends and I'm the richest one or I'm the most successful. I want to be like somebody right there that I can be inspired by, that I'll raise the bar on. And then that person is looking at me like, oh, I could raise the bar against PJ. And then we're in a healthy situation.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be Usain Bolt all the time, just leaving people.
I don't want to hang with brokies.
Oh, no, I'm not a fan of that. Tried it.
It's very depressing.
No. Hated it.
Because you know why? Here's why. And people think that's conceited, but here's why. If you ever strive to do something on your own and business, especially business, when the difficult time comes, your network is tested.
Mm-hmm.
It is tested because when you need to get creative to finance things, you don't need no broke people around you. That'll piss you off. You need people who you can make business decisions with and business deals with to be like, okay, I need to finance something. Here's what I need. This is what I can offer. This is the point I can pay you back within this appointed time. Anything else? Let's talk how we can make some money. I don't want to talk about the Naruto universe on my shirt. I ain't 12 no more. You know what I mean? I don't want to talk about WWE Raw. I stopped watching from Stone Cold and The Rock.
I love some Ric Flair. Woo! Loved it.
I almost said Ric Flair died, but he isn't.
No.
He's still around somewhere, coming out of retirement.
And
but
Dusty Rhodes' son wrestling now. Sorry, my grandpa loved it. But from that perspective, I agree with you, Jay. I changed my circle because years ago, my circle believed that I should be part of this like wives club and that all the husbands kind of made deals on Friday nights in their room. And then I sat in the room with the wives and I would sit around and be like, what the hell am I doing in a room with these people? Because they talking about drapes and curtain and hanging. And I was like, what am I here for? And it's interesting because I realized, oh my gosh, their husbands are the deal makers. Their husbands are the ones that are running this country. And I'm sitting here picking the drapes. No, not that. I needed to partner in business with those husbands. And the thing is, I realized that I had a husband who was in that room who didn't realize he was in a room full of deal makers.
Oh.
So I got a new husband. But from that perspective, it's work in progress. But I realized that my network, which was filled with a bunch of wives who were not
the decision makers,
it wasn't helping me. It wasn't helping my business. They weren't referring me any clients. They weren't making deals. They weren't inspiring me to develop properties. And I couldn't call on them for anything. Like only maybe one of them was a realtor. The rest of them, no. Yeah, none of them had anything else to offer except gossip. Oh, what happened? And I was like, I'm over it. And I think that was one of the reasons why I shifted my circle. And one of the things that I do love actually about being in a sorority is it forces me to have an international. It's an international network.
I can't get that. I'm very old school. I like to dig and claw on my own. Not to say that I don't lean on my network, because I do it. I have some.
You are the beneficiary of lots of nepotism and relationship. Referrals. Your business is a referral business.
Excuse me? You don't put me on blast. You stay quiet.
No, in a positive way, right? Like,
you're the result in the example of nepotism.
Excuse me, I referred you lots of business over the last 20 years. I think that's based on relationships.
Yes, you have. And I appreciate that. But you don't come on my podcast all that. You're the prime example of nepotism.
So you're trying to knock it. It's good. I'm so proud of you.
I need some more nepotism in my life.
Exactly.
I need some $500,000 nepotism.
$25,000 camera light nepotism.
Like, help me out. Like, I need a little contract here or there. Hello.
But I think from that person, I totally agree with you on your network, though, Jay, because, you are the sum total of the 5 people.
Yeah.
And I don't want a bunch of friends who I'm always the one. And we talked about this before.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think from that perspective, when I think of the culture, I think that's one of the things that I love about Bahamian culture and groups like that, where I can call in and I can message people and I can make things happen at the tap of a button, which the average African American can't reach out and touch anybody.
This is one of the reasons why people are like, Jay, you married a Canadian. You can move to Canada at any point in time. And you think me going to Canada to pay them niggas my money and I could be here? I love the Bahamas. You know how much money in the Bahamas? You know how much money I can make in the Bahamas? I would see nowhere near. I would work hell of a lot in Canada to make some coin. I'll be a 6-figure media person now. But I would never have access the way that I have here. Mm-hmm. Never, ever. And you want me to give that up?
The relationships are great here.
No.
I'm almost sometimes a little jealous because my dad has more relationships than me.
Your dad has worked hard to get those relationships. Don't be jealous. Just say, I'm a daddy's girl. Daddy, take me out to lunch.
No, but it's interesting because when you look at his relationships, when he describes it, so like he'll introduce so-and-so and he'll be like, oh, we went to high school together. Right. Oh, we lived in Oaksfield together and used to walk to the same tuck shop. Mm-hmm. Like his relationships are from there.
Right.
So how am I going to get those relationships when ain't nobody walking nowhere? We ain't catching bus together. You know what I'm saying?
How would you describe our relationship?
Symbiotic, pleasant.
No, describe
mutually
it like your daddy.
Beneficial.
Describe it like your daddy.
We didn't go to walk to tuck shop together. Describe it. What do you mean?
I knew Jay from Haiti. Almost married that crazy American girl.
I never describe it that way. I say I met Jay when he was a young photographer joining the Bahamas Bridal Association to learn more about destination weddings and expand his scope. And I recall sitting there and seeing how bright-eyed and bushy-tailed he was.
She just called me green. She just called me
open
green. She's being so nice.
Opportunity. You don't think the Punch and the Tribune and the Guardian and all that stuff was you being open? You know how many other people did not take advantage of that?
That's true. That is true.
And you catapulted beyond because you were willing to take those opportunities. Come on now. Let's talk it now. And I'm so proud of you because of it. And look at the relationships with which you built because you were willing to do that. Mm. So I that's how I would describe it. Unfortunately, we didn't have Candies in Oaksfield together.
No, we did not. We didn't go and raid the mango tree. We are what I would like to call a very prosperous day 2 relationship, because the day 1s you kind of have baked in because of your environment. The day 2s you really get to choose. And I feel that more adults should be making adult friendships as opposed to just taking the people based on their environment, where they went to high school, where they went to college.
Those organic day one relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even, the other day I was doing some work for Turks and Caicos government.
Okay.
And why? One of the reasons is because my father was roommates in college with the premier of Turks and Caicos. Now he just happens to be the premier of Turks and Caicos. So I'm like, okay, which amount of my college roommates are going to be the premier of a country?
You never know.
Wait.
You never know. You just never know. You don't
Maybe
know.
It'll be me.
And this is why when you're climbing and you're building, you never, I burn bridges, but I'm very comfortable when I burn a bridge. And I don't get mad once I do it. But if you're a person that can't take certain chafing, you can't burn bridges.
I'm not a bridge burner.
I am. I sell the match, the gas, all that stuff, and I burn it all the way to the ground. But you have to be careful, not just burning bridges. I think shitting on people and making unnecessary enemies.
Oh yeah, that's bad.
That's. I think that is worse than a bridge burner. At least a bridge burner is direct. I did something that you didn't like, or you did something that I didn't like, and we just cut. As opposed to, I try to use you, I try to manipulate you, and then behind your back, I shit on you and I shit on your name. I think that's a bit worse. You have to be very careful because you don't know who will become who. The wife just was looking at a picture that she took while we first dated. She was standing next to then MP Philip Brave Davis before the QC or KC, right? And she was looking back, and it's such an interesting photograph. I'll send it to you.
Because there's multiple people in the photo.
No. It's an interesting photograph. I sent it to you. And I just burst out laughing because I remember taking it. I remember being there when it was not taking it, but when it was taken. And it over the years, as she's grown in her career, she's sat down with the first lady, the now first lady. She's been photographing him and also the minister of education. And now that everything is full circle, but you don't know 7 years ago. You didn't know 7 years ago.
That that's who they were going to be.
That's who they were going to be. And it's so interesting. So those type of things you kind of need to, as a young person, take stock of because you don't want to make unnecessary enemies.
And that's why where you send your child to school is so important, because they are those day one relationships that become, you never know if your next door neighbor who you're playing play dates with is going to be the next prime minister.
Yeah.
So do you want to send your kid to crap school on the corner, or do you want to spend the extra $1 to send them to a good private school where the education is top notch?
Okay. So we got to cut it down because we are
way over as usual.
Way over time. But it's always great to have a conversation with you. I love it. We need to figure out how to do this more.
Well, you never know.
I need you to help me work on that documentary with the Illuminati and bring them to camera. Because we have it. We have a great location.
Maybe I should get a jet.
They have a lot to say. Maybe you should move home. That's the episode for the night. Another episode of the Full Gambit podcast. PJ Douglas signs in the booth with me tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Good night.
Good night.